Good afternoon, Boston. Welcome to our seventh Ask a Pro webinar, Digital Design for Startups, Creating Meaningful Experiences for Your Target Audience, and featuring the talented Susana Arellano, who is the co-founder and creative director of Agenda28. My name is Linda Plano, and I have the best job in the world. I get to work with smart, creative, and passionate people just like you and help you make your dreams come true. Over the last decade, I've had the privilege of coaching nearly 600 mostly high-tech entrepreneurs, and they have gone on to raise well over $250 million. But you know, there are so many things you need to know and do in addition to pitching. The Ask a Pro webinar series is designed to bring other experienced professionals to you so that you can get their insights firsthand and get your questions answered in real time. I'll turn things over to today's guest, Susana, in a moment, but first, let me do just a little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, the Ask a Pro webinar series was relaunched this year based on popular demand from the mentees who participate in the MIT Enterprise Forum of Cambridge's MentorSmart program. And as always, special thanks to Katja Wald and Amy Goggins, who run the organization in Cambridge. You can learn more about the program at bit.ly/mentorsmartinfo. Also, Ask a Pro topics will be coming up. I haven't actually scheduled any of these. It's been an incredibly hectic fall, but thank you to those of you who have taken the time to let me know what you're most interested in. So I hope you'll be excited to hear that we'll be covering angel funding with one of my favorite angels, proposal writing, how to recruit and actually how to manage team members, negotiation strategies, corporate law, and some bootstrapping do's and don'ts. Those are all on the list going forward. If you have any other ideas, you'll have the chance to sign up for those after this webinar. And do be sure to stick around till the end, because while I never promote selling anything in this webinar, I do often twist the arm of my guests to make some time slots available for free for those who attend the whole webinar. Now, Susana and I haven't had a chance to really talk about this just yet, so keep your fingers crossed and maybe you'll get lucky and be able to get that kind of an opportunity. Alrighty, so Susana has joined us here, and I'll be passing this over to her in just a moment, but let me just tell you why I wanted to do this particular webinar in particular. As a scientist, I do have degrees in material science and engineering from Stanford and physics from MIT. I really understand how important content is, and I know how frustrating it can be for some technical founders when content isn't enough. But as a pitch coach and someone who has pitched to investors, upper management, funding agencies, and many, many others, I also know how important appearance and style are. So some of my clients think it's unfair about how something looks is important, and it should be about the content, and to some degree I agree with that. But for example, when I teach pitching to academics, I often wear a suit, even though it's usually a pretty casual environment. And so I asked them at the beginning whether appearances should matter, and they almost invariably say no. Shouldn't matter how you look, shouldn't matter how anything looks. A little bit later, I asked them whether the fact that I am in a suit makes them trust me more or less. And I swear to God, most of the audience will say they trust me less. So the fact is that even among scientists who pride themselves on objectivity, appearances really does matter. It's how we're wired, and fighting it is a waste of energy. Instead, we need to learn to consider design as well as content and how we present ourselves and our startups. So I am very excited to bring to you a very fresh perspective on design for websites and presentations for startups from the co-founder of an innovative firm that is focused on social impact as well as amazing design. So Susana, let's make sure that you're unmuted. Your mic might be muted on your side, and I'm also going to pass over the presentation to you. Hi, Susana, welcome.
Hi, how are you, Linda?
Fabulous, how are you today?
I'm very good. So let me get started.
Okay, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect.
Gorgeous.
Yes. The
Oh, and
computer
while
is a
we're
little
waiting,
bit slow.
sorry,
Yeah.
well, while that's coming up, let me just remind everybody in the audience, if you're not familiar with it, there's a red and white arrow in the top right corner of your screen. If you click on that, it will open up your toolbar. And if you look down, you will see that there is a question box. If you have any questions, by all means, please enter them. I will be keeping an eye out for them, and we'll stop and answer them as we go, or save them for the end, depending on how relevant they are. And also, if you want to talk live, you can also just raise your hand, and I will try to keep an eye out for that as well. With all that said, looks like we are ready to go. Susana?
Yes. Okay, so welcome to this seminar. This is called Digital Design Trends because, as Linda explained, we didn't want only to present some ideas on how to improve the design of your website, but also how you can improve the design of your own presentations so that when you're giving your page, it's really appealing to both your customers and investors. So this presentation is done by Agenda28, and I want to introduce you a little bit about what we do and who we are. So Agenda28 is a design studio. We're based in New York City, and we specialize in social innovation. What does this mean? So we develop integral design strategies that increase the impact of social initiatives. This means that mainly our customers are either nonprofits or social enterprises that want to have a positive impact in the world, and through design we help them achieve that goal. Now, I was also talking with Linda about how we get customers that even though they are not specialized in social impact, they still have impact by hiring our services. We do design strategy, branding, product design, and digital design. But here is the plus, and this is why you would also have impact by hiring us. So we have this talent program in which we give employment opportunities to young designers from emerging economies. And through this program, what they do is that they continue their education in design and mentorship, and they start earning better salaries. So most of the people enrolled here in our program come from low-income backgrounds, and we teach them design skills and give them the opportunity to work with projects from the clients that hire us and learn how to improve those skills. So if you hire our services, you know that you will be helping fund the program for these talented young people. Now, we're going to talk a little bit first about the digital design trends, and then you will have a chance to ask questions. But also, if you have an urgent question in the middle, you can ask it as well. So I'm going to start just talking about design a little bit, and I like this quote from John Meda, and it says, since 2010, 27 companies founded by designers were acquired by bigger companies like Google, Facebook, Yahoo, Adobe, Dropbox, and LinkedIn. 5 startups co-founded by designers have raised more than 2.75 billion, and more are out there. Last year, for the first time ever, 6 venture capital firms invited designers to join their teams. What does this mean? That design is very relevant right now. And it's not only about getting more customers, but it's also about innovation, how your business can grow.
Susana,
Yes?
may I ask, so why did they invite the designers to join their teams? Is it something to help with product design for the entrepreneurs, or to improve the look and feel of their websites and such?
That's a great question, Linda. So this involves not only actually the improvement of how their products look and how their digital design looks, but actually in the business as well. So designers are coming with new ideas on how to improve process, methodologies, and ways of understanding business. So coming from a very different background in which the design process is different, they have incorporated creative methodologies that has helped businesses innovate in different ways.
That's really impressive, actually, because in my experience, venture capital firms don't like to spend money on anything that isn't directly involved with their investment. For instance, I tried initially with my business model to get hired as a pitch coach for their entrepreneurs, which I thought would be a natural kind of a thing, and it's really just not something they do very readily. So the fact that they have actually invested in design really underlines how important it's become.
Absolutely. And also understanding that design is not only about aesthetics, but it's also about knowing how to engage your users, how to attract investors, how to retain your customers, and how to improve your business overall. So I like this webinar, especially in this space that you are giving us, Linda, because all of these design trends, they will be able to apply into their pitch deck's website, but also thinking about those 10 questions that you have taught them.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so let's start with our trends. And the first trend is responsive. What does that mean? So, as John Mehta said as well in his Design in Tech report, tech is no longer for techies because mobile is for everybody right now. So what does John Mehta mean by this? Before, technology was a tool that we used mainly for work. So you would get to work, use your computer, and then forget all about it. What happened with smartphones? So when the smartphone comes out, technology becomes your everyday tool, not only for work, not only for specific documents or information, but you can actually use it almost for everything in your daily life. You know, you can now meet someone that has similar interests to you in a certain radius, or find your favorite food around the corner. So what this has made is that whenever we're working on something that some user is going to see in their desktop, you also have to have in mind that they will have it in their iPads and in their smartphones, and now even in their watches. If you see the display here, and it's a lot more clear, when we talk about responsive and they tell you that this is a responsive design, it means that whatever information that you see on your computer screen will be translated into your iPad format and into a phone format. But this comes with differences. So it's not about looking at a regular website and just trying to scroll over like if you would just see your desktop website smaller. But actually, what does it entail that it's in a phone? So it has a different function and a different way of showing information.
Before
And
you
our
move
second,
on
yeah,
to the next thing, I actually
sure,
have several people who are applying to a competition, and I've been encouraging them that as part of the application, they're required to put in their website URL, and many of them don't
yep.
have a website as yet. So I want them to be sure to have at least one page up there with at least their elevator pitch on it, which they also have to have. Can you recommend anything in terms of platforms that would be particularly good to use for just a one-page placeholder while they get the funding to get a real website together, one that's going to be responsive?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and we get tons of clients. I have a project right now that we're delivering by the end of the year in which it is exactly that. So a lot of startups look for us to design landing pages, and we're going to talk a little bit about this with the infinite scroll that we're going to present now. And this means that, yes, this is a very important tool that you need to show your investors. And so we get that a lot. It's a way of, and I'm going to explain this also, of storytelling and
Yeah,
of
yeah. Don't
presenting
let
your
me jump you
project.
ahead of your presentation. This is actually more of a technical question. Like, do you
Yes,
usually recommend like WordPress or Squarespace, or is there something else if all you have time and money for is that one page, and really you want to hire a design firm such as Agenda28 in the near future, but for right now you just need to get a page up. Is there any platform you recommend?
yes, I would recommend both Squarespace and WordPress. I would just like to remind you that it's not extremely easy. And we did that a lot because some of our clients, when we tell them WordPress is really easy and Squarespace is really easy, they then tell us, well, I tried and it wasn't that easy, you know.
Yes, yes. Been there,
So
done that.
it takes some time to learn. There are tons of tutorials out there, and I would encourage you, one, to look for already, if you're in Squarespace, you will have to choose a theme with that is easy. And if you're with WordPress, to also buy already a template that you can use and just change the information so that it serves your purpose. When I say WordPress, I would recommend you that whenever you choose a template, you choose it with this option that they have, that it's downloading their demo page. And that means that you wouldn't only have the functions that the template gives you, but if you download the demo page, it looks exactly as the theme they show you, and you just change the information so that it has yours.
And if they're going to work with a design firm such as yours later on, do you have a preference whether they start in Squarespace or WordPress?
No, that's actually completely up to the client.
Okay.
So we have, for example, clients that prefer Squarespace because then they don't have to worry about backups and hosting and things
Right,
like that.
right,
I have others that like WordPress because it's a lot more flexible and that they can grow their own websites to have a lot more functions than if they did it with Squarespace.
right.
And then we have others that want to go ahead and start with HTML because
Mhm.
they want absolute freedom, but they also are thinking of hiring someone within their team that knows how to use code so that they don't have to keep on hiring us all the time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So as Linda said, yes, this is used a lot for startups when you're presenting your product. And one of the main trends right now is the infinite scroll. What does that mean? And I'm going to show you right now examples of this. Okay, so let's start with our first example. And this is a website for the movie While We're Young. And as you see, the first thing when we open it, it's very large text. We start seeing shots from the movie. And then as we start scrolling down, which means that you're moving your mouse downwards, it starts telling us a lot more of what this movie entails. And as you see, the image on the background or the movie starts changing.
Wow, very
And
cool.
at the end, we have other options, you know, in which it's a lot more specific
Hmm.
on themes that we want to explore. So what does this mean? This means that actually what we're looking at is a story. So you have to remember, and I mean, it's so straightforward as Linda has introduced you to 10 points. It's about presenting step by step why they should be interested in your project. And so the first thing, and we're going to talk about that ahead, is the impression of what this is about. But then as you start scrolling down, and let me go to another one, Getaway, you start learning. So what is Getaway? Who is supporting it? What features does it have? So why should I be interested in this product? How it works? So it's giving me a step-by-step process to understand how this product works. Again, why should I be interested in this? And then an email address to subscribe. So the scrolling allows us to not be jumping around several pages and at the same time learn step by step, why should I be interested in this?
And the scrolling is essential these days because of all the use of the smaller platforms, right? Nobody really likes a
Absolutely.
lot of menu anymore, right? I used to have ones that
Same.
were like 3 deep because I like lots and lots of detail, and I guess I finally had to let go of that. Um, and so do you have any kind of rule of thumb about how many menu items is okay and how many is getting to be too many or anything like that? Or is it really just a case of the specific situation?
Yeah, I think it's very specific, but I would recommend you not having more than 5 menu items on top. Otherwise, it becomes a little bit overwhelming. But there are other types of menu that I'm going to show you right now that could help you improve that. So, And within the storytelling, and let me see if this has it. No, actually not. But I wasn't prepared for this question, but
Sorry.
there is, that's okay. There is this type of menu, and they are called anchor links. And what that means is that when you click on one of these options up here, it doesn't mean that it's taking you to a different page, but it's actually taking you to one part of the scrolling.
Oh, yeah,
So it's kind of a guide into that storytelling, you know?
right.
And I like very much what you talk about with your three main parts, in which you say introduce yourself, explain why the user investor should care, and make an ask. And I think that your infinite scroll should reflect those three parts.
Well, that sounds extremely intelligent of you, I just have to say, from an unprejudiced perspective.
Okay, and let's see how infinite scrolling has improved some businesses. So infinite scrolling can lower your bounce rate, which means the time that a user takes between looking at what you're presenting and then leaving your website. Time.com's bounce rate dropped 15 percentage points after they adopted continuous scroll. So this is very big, right? And
Yeah.
I think that also this is a way in which think about your pitch deck, you know? Think about these three parts and think about it as storytelling. Then our next trend would be the mobile menu. And this has to do with what you were mentioning before. So now websites look a lot cleaner. If you think about the upper part, most of them are now just have these three lines, which is called a hamburger menu, and it looks like a hamburger. And then on the other side, they usually have, for example, social media. Let's see, Fabrica. And I want to show you what happens when you click those. So with the relevance that we have right now with mobile devices, they had to look for a way in which navigating through a website was easier. And that meant that you could not have, for example, those 5 menus on top of your smartphone, especially when you're looking at it in a vertical way. So they developed this icon, which means that if you click, you will get the menu. And right now, there are 3 main trends. The first one is to have a whole screen for your menu. And if you see, even though this has more than 5, it's a lot easier to navigate throughout because you're completely focusing on what the menu is. And it not only has the main areas, but actually it has different areas within. So smartphone usage was up 394% from December 2010 to December 2014. That means that more than 75% of all Americans who use the internet, age 18 and up, now access digital content on both their desktop and their mobile devices. So that meant that even though you have a really nice menu with the words up on your desktop, it shouldn't be the same as the one that you have on your mobile because you need it to adapt. So mobile-only internet usage is also becoming more common, which means that is why we're taking that trend and now adapting it into the desktop websites so that they look cleaner. Driven predominantly by millennials, of which 21% are no longer using desktop computers to go online. And that is shocking because that means actually that even though you're designing first your website in a desktop, probably a lot more people are going to see it mobile than desktop.
Now, do you have any idea what percentage of websites actually are not responsive at this point, or are you pretty safe now if you're starting a new website?
If you're starting a new website, you absolutely have to do it responsive. I mean, there is no option right now. When you ask me also about templates, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but you have to check that this template is responsive. If you hire Squarespace, for example, I know they already have it, but if you go with WordPress and you find an old template, then it might not, and this is absolutely basic. You need to have it to be responsive.
Great, thanks.
And let me show you 2 more examples so that you see the other options with the hamburger menu. So other one, and that I actually like better than the full screen, is to have your menu on the side, because you still can browse through the main one, and you don't have to get in and out of the menu all the time. And then we have another one which takes you to a non-traditional version of it. So basically, what he does is that he brings a menu that is a lot more dynamic. And as you see, we can scroll throughout his projects. So that menu means that it's not only about placing words, but you can also start playing now with images within your menu, because you're getting a different section for it. And let's go with the fourth one. And that would be photography and hero images. So what has happened is that with the advances that we have now in technology and the new cameras coming out and the possibilities that we have with retina display, is that we can showcase images larger and a lot sharper. And so right now, and as you know, having a smartphone, we're all obsessed with photographs, and they have become a very important part of our lives, not only because we like recording moments, but also because they represent things, and because they convey ideas or lifestyles that we are interested on. So right now, something that's happening a lot is called the hero image, which means that you have a very large image on your homepage as soon as you open it, and then you start scrolling down, as we said, with the infinite scroll. Always remember that it's not about just putting any type of photograph, but it has to be related with the message that you want to convey. For example, I love this one. It says White Frontier, and even though it's a website that focuses on alcohol, if you see, there is a guy at the top of a mountain in the middle of the snow, the White Frontier, right? And then we have another example here of adaptable, and I like this one very much too. Think that it's not only about showing the photograph as it is, but you can also play with colors, for example, and filters like this one. And I love that it says digital solutions, laid back clarity, simplicity, and honesty. And basically, we have there an image of a digital design, and on the back, an actual person working on design.
So I have two questions about hero images. Number one is that, do you find them useful in presentation decks?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have found that not only through our clients, but ourselves. So from the talent program, for example, it's so much more engaging when we put a photograph of one of the people in our talent program than if we just showcase words, because then you actually recognize what's happening and you identify with who is there. And with the startups that are hiring us, they also are very interested in showing what type of people would purchase that product, so that you can actually relate to what you're seeing there.
So I get that totally, but my most legitimate excuse, because I have many excuses why I don't write enough blog posts, but my most legitimate excuse is that I
Yeah.
know you need to have an image, a hero image, if you will, to go with each one in order to really engage the audience. But finding that image, I totally get hiring a firm to do something as important as a website, but I can't hire a firm to find me an image for every single blog post I do. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
recommendations about how one would go about identifying images that might be useful, just sort of on a
Absolutely.
smaller basis?
Yes, there are some websites. There are two platforms that I would recommend you. One is pexels.com, and the other one, let's see, so that you can actually see what I'm talking about. And I recommend this to all of my clients because even though we select the photographs for their websites,
Mm-hmm.
I always recommend them that when they are doing social media or they are sending newsletters, that they pick images that are appealing. And you will see such a difference in the response from people. I mean, when you post something in social media with a photograph that it's not very appealing or with an image that it's not very appealing, you will see how when you switch and start looking for photography that it's nice and that has to do with the post and it's attractive, you get a lot more response. So
Absolutely.
pexels.com, for example, has free images, and as you can see, I mean, they are so diverse. And if you search, you can find almost any topic. So
That's beautiful.
the only downside, and then the other website that I would recommend is unsplash.com. The only downside for this is that sometimes you will see that other startups and actually big companies are using the same images. Um, but I mean, to be honest, we have also realized that most customers don't notice that a lot of businesses are using the same
I
images.
just thank you so much for not recommending Flickr directly because I've searched on
Oh
Flickr
no.
so many times. It's always recommended, and I can never find images that are available for free for I forget what the Creative Commons that come anywhere
Exactly.
close to something as beautiful as some of these are. So thanks. These are really useful recommendations.
And that's very, very relevant. Please do not use photographs that you don't have copyright for. As artists, we are really completely against that. So just make sure that, as Linda said, that you have a Creative Commons license, and by going to these websites, you already have it for sure.
Okay, we have a question from Anne. Anne, you are unmuted.
Yes, thank you, Susan. This is so wonderful, this whole presentation. I have one question about the hero. I love the design, but I come from a background of plain language, and one of the rules of plain language is not to ever superimpose uh, words on a picture because it reduces the readability. Can you comment on that?
Yes, so what usually is happening, and that has to do with this blue filter, for example, as well, is that right now what we do is to start playing a little bit with the photograph so that actually the area where the text is readable. So if you see here, most of the image that has the text in front is very plain. It's almost all of the same color.
Right.
If we go with the blue one, as you see also, most of it doesn't have anything on the back, and that's also why they put the blue. If we would see the actual image, the original one in color without the blue, it would be very difficult to read.
Right.
But
So
by putting a filter on it, you're actually isolating it and giving it like two different layers.
great. Well, thank you.
And let me show you, I'll show you right now a third example. And I just wanted to mention that first impressions are 94% design related. And as Linda said, I mean, this is so relevant. So whenever someone opens your page, you want that first image to be as engaging as it can be. And this is a third example that I want to show you, and that has to do with Anne's question as well. So if you see, we created this image in the background, and even though it's not a photograph, it's an image that we created with tools and things that are relevant to the people who are visiting this website, who are scientists. And we place the words in an area where you don't have any other elements that distract you.
Susana, did you know that this is one of our one of the companies that applied to be in the MentorSmart program, or is that
Oh,
just
no.
coincidence? Oh, how funny!
Okay.
All right, sorry
That's
to
so cool.
interrupt. Please continue.
We love tetrascience. Yeah, I mean, we have done a lot of design things for them, and they
Okay.
are a fantastic startup. Amazing.
Yes, yes.
And so as you see, again, I want to showcase this one, not because we did it, but because it also responds to the infinite scroll. So first, we're talking about what tetrascience is. Then they wanted to make sure that people know that this is trusted and already in use by researchers or several places. So you're already telling people continue reading, you know, because a lot of other people that you admire are already using the product. Then we have different audiences, one for researchers, one for suppliers, and very, very important, show your product. I know that for startups sometimes it's very difficult because they don't have the end product yet when they are looking for funding, but it really makes a difference if you show your actual software or product within your presentation. And the ability of show different aspects of it and mention why it should be appealing.
Nice.
And at the end, and this we'll talk about also next, it's about putting calls for action. And that means that you have buttons and you're encouraging people to actually ask what your product is or purchase it or subscribe to your newsletter and things like that. And then creative fonts, and that's going to go along with Anne's question as well. So what's happening right now is that yes, we have the hero images, but we're also paying a lot more attention to typography. And this means that now we have the chance that even though we're putting these words on top of images, they have to be readable and they have to be appealing. And I really like this example. And again, like with the one that we saw in the beginning while we were young, in which we see actually different types of fonts used differently, see how they highlight the young part, see how it's bigger than the rest. And then every entrepreneur should have 6 pitches. And I like that you mentioned website.
Well, it is the only one that's there available 24/7, so it better represent your company well.
Exactly. And I mean, everything that we've said applies both to your website and to your deck. Now, ghost buttons. What does that mean? So we're using a lot more images, and we're using making, as we said before, a lot more simpler what we're looking at. So right now, what ghost buttons are doing is that they allow us to see through, but still are telling us we are something that you can click on.
Now,
So
I have to tell you, from an old person's perspective here, these are very difficult to read. So is this only for websites that are supposed to appeal to millennials, or is there anything that we can, how can you use ghost buttons so they appeal to younger people but are still readable? Because I can barely see the experience and experience our rise there.
That's a great question, Linda, and that has to do with what Anne said before. Really pay attention that it's actually readable, as you said, because here you have a white background. It's very hard. I like, however, when you hover on it, that it transforms, so it's easier to read. So your immediate reaction would be, oh, I cannot read that, but if you put your mouse on it, you would hover and be solid, and it would be easier.
I would really still prefer to see like a drop shadow at least on that or something, because otherwise what it says to me is that, you know, you guys aren't interested in me because you're making it impossible to read. So you have a different audience in mind than me. I would be very cautious about that.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. And this is one of the basic principles of design. It looks good, but it doesn't work, then it actually is a bad idea. So you have to make sure that it's actually functional for what you want it to be. And if it's not as beautiful as you think, but it actually works, then I would go for it rather than something that looks really pretty, but it won't be functional for your purpose. And here is another option that I want to show you because I think this is readable. And that means that this goes aligned with linear icons, which has to do also with ghost buttons. And as you see, they're all lines, and we'll see another example after. And if you just have one colored background, a solid color, and you just put your ghost button, I think that makes it a lot more readable.
Wow,
What
those
do
are
you
all
think?
buttons at the top? Did you?
No, these are not.
Sorry.
These are
Okay.
just to illustrate the idea.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, let's see. These ones I think are easier to read, but as you can tell, it doesn't look like text, and just by putting a box around it, you know that it's actually a button.
Right.
When people think they might lose out an opportunity that might not come around again, they'll be mighty quick to hop on the bandwagon. One of the best uses of fear of missing out in your call to action is to mention a sale or promotion that your company is holding and which won't last forever. And I think that is a very good advice, and that actually has to do with reduce fear, increase greed, which I love, and I actually tell that to our own clients now, because that's very true. You have to actually make them think that they are not gonna be part of that or miss some information, or that they should actually want that so badly that they have to click on it.
People are going to start thinking that I have paid you to put all of these quotes in here.
Oh no, oh,
I
not
hope
at
this
all.
is the last one. But before we go further, we do have a question from Anne again on fonts. Which fonts do you suggest for a website and presentations, and are there fonts you would avoid?
Well, I think what I would recommend beyond specific fonts would be to go with fonts that are web friendly. And now, I mean, before that was like so basic. It was just like, I don't know, 10 fonts, and that are not very nice.
Yeah.
But now what's happening is that Google and other businesses are launching fonts that actually are stored on the internet, and that means that even though someone opens it in another country, in another platform, another type of computer or anything, it will still have access to that font, and it will be able to read it as it is. If you go on your browser to Google Fonts, well, if you go to Google Fonts, then you can input any type of text and then see how it looks. And I wouldn't recommend a specific one because there are so many and that are so nice that I would ask you to first test it here. So for example, let's say that you want to look at Linda Plano. Oh. Sorry, I think I have many.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is great and I wasn't familiar with this particular service, but one problem I run into a lot for my clients is that they like to put fancy fonts into their presentations, which I think is super risky, because if they don't have control over the laptop or whatever that's being used to project the presentation, especially if you go back and forth between Macs and PCs, because as you know, PowerPoint has a very different back end depending on which platform you created it on. So they wind up with fonts that just don't look right, transparencies that don't look right, all of that kind of stuff. So I usually tell them to stay with a Calibri, Trebuchet if they absolutely must, or something like that, rather than getting into anything that's really beautiful. Is there a way to get around that?
The only way I can think of is, instead of showing your presentation through PowerPoint, it would be to show it as a PDF. And that will only affect your animations because then it wouldn't be animated. But if you're not using animations, which I think it's fine too, you can just save it as a PDF and show it as it is.
Yes, well, unfortunately, animations are one of the keys that I often have, just because the technologies that people are usually talking about are complex, and so animations often help a lot in those terms. But yeah, okay, so you don't have any additional magic for me. I just have to stick with the usual solutions of PDF or keep it simple. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I would always suggest Helvetica.
Yeah.
That's a classic font. It's beautiful, and if you open it in a PC, it would go with Arial, which I think it's nice too.
Okay, great, thanks.
Oh, and sorry, to finish with the Google fonts. So basically look at how it shows it to you and make sure that the feeling of it has to do with the type of product you're selling or your pitch. And we talked a little bit about this before with the linear icons, which has to do again with what we said of the ghost buttons. And I showed you these icons as well. And let's see this one. It's a very nice website. Again, we can see many of the things we talked about. We can see the hamburger menu. We can see the type of icons. I love how these moves.
That's cool.
And again, this is scrolling down and it's telling me a story. Little by little, I'm learning stats, understanding, right? Communication, etc. Flat design. So what does flat design mean? I like this example, even though it's very overwhelming. It's what we talk about. So right now, what happened is that since 2003, flat design started appearing everywhere instead of realism. So realism, again, shadows, you can see textures, you can actually see the hairs. Flat design, we have solids. And if you see, you don't have textures on it, but it's just one solid color.
Mm-hmm.
And that is giving a very modern look to whatever you are doing. This one we already saw. You see everything is lines. It's very abstract. And I like this one because it can also be applied to many other things. Again, illustrations with flat design, which are easier to do, a lot simpler,
Yeah.
and they look beautiful and modern.
And they're probably easier to shrink and expand depending on the platform. You don't have to worry so much about losing the detail.
Well, that has to do with it as well, but also I would, I mean, this has to do as well with icons that are out there right now and that are done in vector format. And that means that they are not pixels anymore. Right. So whenever you open them in any platform, even if they expand or shrink, they would always look sharp.
Really? So you can actually embed icons that are vector format and the browser will recognize that?
Exactly. I mean,
Holy cow.
It's like fonts, basically. So it's like putting a font and as letters. So
no kidding. Wow.
The drawings actually respond in the same way. And I like this one too, because even though it has flat design, I want you not to think that all of those drawings have to be the same, but actually how can you mix all type of illustrations with flat design? So even though here you have texture, you can see that everything is one color, it's simplified, and it's against one solid background.
I'm not sure those drawings count as realistic though.
Well, yeah, they are animals with suits, but,
Yep, okay.
but in terms of textures and feeling, yeah. Judgments on website credibility are 75% based on a website's overall aesthetics. I mean, what does that tell you? Again, if you don't show a presentation that looks good aesthetically, then they won't think it's true, you know?
Huh.
How many times you get into a website and then you're like, no, this looks a little bit sketchy. It must be a scam. And you just get out. Now let's go with parallax. What does parallax mean? So parallax is looking at websites and understanding that they have different layers. So one layer moves in a different speed than the layer that is above or behind it. So if you start scrolling down this website, you will see that the background is fixed, whereas the layer over it is moving.
Mm-hmm.
Again, here, background is still, and the upper parts are moving. And this adds so much aesthetic into your website.
Are these mostly handwritten in HTML, or are they based on a platform like WordPress or Squarespace?
You can actually do that. I'm not sure in Squarespace, but you can actually do it in WordPress. Many of the templates that you can buy already have parallax.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not as if it's already done for you, but they give you the option. So they give you the option to embed one image as background that will be fixed, or give it a certain speed, and then embed another one on top that will move differently.
Okay,
I want to show you this one, even though I didn't include it in the beginning of the presentation, because I saw it recently and think it's very cool. So as you can see, the iPad starts scrolling down. You go down, it tells you who is the designer. Then the images drop. They get into the software. The image comes out of the software into the iPad as it is web, into the phone.
Okay, you're
That's
breaking up
beautiful.
a
So
little.
that's oh, that this is a huge potential right now for websites and for explaining ideas. Nathan Rayleigh. I think I didn't open this one. That's okay. And then this is very important. So at Sunny, we assume all products of our competitors will have basically the same technology, price, performance, and features. Design is the only thing that differentiates one product from another in the marketplace. And what do I mean by this? So think about all of the other competitors that you have. Maybe they will show the same features, maybe they will have the same technology, price, etc. But how you can actually be above them is through design. Think about how you're selling your things and how appealing they can be. And finally, micro-interactions. So what are micro-interactions? And this is very interesting because you are seeing them all over on whatever thing you're doing right now. And so these are single moments of communication that help users flow through your design. What does that mean? So like an elevator, you have there a button. So a person gets in the elevator, they look at the panel, they know there is a button, they press it, and when they press it, it turns red and it starts moving you onto the first floor. So what does that mean? Whenever you have a website, there are many areas in which you are asking the user to focus, as we saw with the ghost buttons. Just by putting the border around it, you know it's a button, they are going to hover over it. And what happens when they click? So you need an immediate reaction of what that is giving the user, and then understanding if the user is going to engage or they are going to leave. This is a beautiful website for the movie of Amy Winehouse. Let me show you again. We have here the hamburger menu. And I love how this menu works as you move through. And again, even though I'm not clicking on it, as soon as I hover, something happens. The letters change color, and not only changes color, but it's giving me a different image of what I'm actually going to look at. And it makes me want to scroll around all of them, right?
Yes.
Because I'm getting different reactions to it. Again, here the buttons, post a comment, and then once you click on it, it starts scrolling down. And let me see. Oh, here. This we already saw. This one, I love this website too. See how that changed?
Yeah, yeah.
You start scrolling down. Again, infinite scroll. It's telling you who knows, who will. And I love this section here. No, let me here, looking for a new job. These are all the job opportunities that they are showing. As you scroll on it and you go towards the end, it starts shifting.
Wow.
Yeah, this is very advanced.
Yes, no kidding. Not
And
exactly a
then,
standard template.
well, actually, you would be surprised, but there are many templates that are already doing these
No
things.
kidding.
And just have to replace the information. Yeah. And as you see again, as I scroll down, it starts telling me here with the circle how much more information there is to go. And by the end, when I finished reading, it's actually telling me apply. Beautiful.
Totally.
And finally, this idea of micro interactions, it's extremely relevant right now, especially for apps, because you will notice as you're engaging with an app that it's very difficult now to stop, and that's what app designers are looking for, so that you're really engaged and you want to explore more. And that has to do with, one, a button that's calling for you to do something. You do it and you get a reaction that again attracts you to do something more. And we have seen these with one app that we designed, and I recommend you to download it. It's from our friends of Done Good. And what they are doing is an app so that you can find places that have to do with your values. So if you want a business that's green, that sells organic products, or that gives back to the community, then you can. And you have right now for the Boston area.
Yeah, actually they were in the Beantown Throwdown of the MIT Enterprise Forum, so I had a chance to coach these guys. So yeah, it's great to, and I downloaded their app immediately afterwards because it is really cool.
It is really cool. They are gonna launch soon. We have been working on the next version.
Excellent.
And yeah, they are doing very, very well.
They're doing good.
Exactly, they're doing good. So to leverage design successfully in tech, don't spray design on at the end. Design is a cost, and then it's just not a cost, but it's actually an investment. And I wanted to say that especially to you guys because it's about thinking of design from the start. Don't think that, oh, we will focus on design after we launch our things or after we get the funding, but just embed it throughout your process because this is going to be very relevant throughout all of the lifespan of your business. Now, Linda asked me to speak a little bit about the difference between doing it yourself and hiring a designer. And I think that we have talked a little bit about it throughout the presentation. But I think that a good idea, especially for startups, is to do a mix. So how can you balance doing it yourself and hiring a designer? And what we have encountered a lot is that what I recommend is, yes, hire someone that can, for example, design your landing page, but also that can leave you some pages blank so that you actually, as you grow, you can start inputting information there. So don't look for a design firm that makes you dependent on them forever, but actually that teaches you how to move forward and don't need them all the time. Another suggestion that we always make is hire a design intern. And that is so helpful because most of the time you have to do presentations and other things. And if you have a design intern with a view of aesthetics and that knows your business and it's there in the everyday, you will see what a huge asset that is. anything else that you want me to mention about this area, Linda?
Well, all my questions have kind of pushed us a little bit over time here, so unless there is something else that comes up from the audience, I thank you so much. This has been really engaging. I learned a ton more than I thought I would because I'm kind of an amateur web developer and that kind of thing, so I thought I knew most of the stuff, but obviously I'm way behind the times. So this was really useful, and I think the firm itself is really exciting, and I will be giving you a call about
Hello?
design interns. Can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, I can hear you now
Okay,
again.
good.
Yes.
Yeah, we seem to be going kind of in and out, so sorry about that. That's thank you, GoToWebinar, or else maybe it's bandwidth and I should be blaming Comcast. But anyway, thank you very, very much. That was really informative. I appreciate it terribly much. Oh, we do have one last question. So where do we find design interns? I suspect you have a good answer for that one.
Well, I would suggest you looking at universities. Whenever you post at the university an internship, just think of someone that has a background either on, I would say, graphic design, architecture, even industrial design.
Now, I thought
And
that, I'm sorry, I thought that
yeah,
interns you really had to kind of get in September or something like that. Is it worth trying even in the middle of the year
absolutely.
like now? Oh, good.
Yes, absolutely. Because there are always people that maybe they were not interested in the beginning or they didn't have a time for applying. I would just put it out there. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that you don't get one, but then your ad will be there and probably someone will call you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, let me take control back if you don't mind, so we can just kind
Absolutely.
of finish up here.
Yeah.
Um, but thank you again very, very much. Oh, I guess the last thing is if somebody wants to talk to you or wants to get a half hour to of kind of a consult with you, is that something that you're willing to do?
Yes, yes, we're willing. Absolutely. They can send us an email to my email, which is S and they like my last name, ARELLANO. So that again, that's SARELLANO at agenda28.com. And if they send me an email, I can give them advice. We always do that when someone actually asks us for a quote. We like to be very straightforward and transparent about things. And also, we would like to offer a 10% discount to anyone that's wanting to hire our design services.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Susana. And for everybody who is watching this, we do have now half a dozen of these Ask a Pro webinars on my YouTube playlist at askapro-playlist. I will be taking the first two off as of January 1st. And as I mentioned before, we've got a great list of new topics coming up to be scheduled in the not too distant future for Thursdays on about a bi-weekly basis. It looks like I'll be spending quite a bit of time in Europe in the first quarter of this coming year. So it will be very interesting to see how this all comes together. But thank you for your interest in Ask a Pro. Thank you again to Susana and to Agenda28. And you can be sure I will be reaching out to you in the not too distant future.
Great. Thank you, Linda.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of the week and happy holidays to everybody.